Should I start, sir? Okay. So my topic is thematic study of the poem "You Laughed and Laughed and Laughed" by Gabriel Okara. And first, let me begin with about the poem. So "You Laughed and Laughed and Laughed" is a poem by Nigerian writer Gabriel Okara that was written in 1950, and it was later published in 1955. So the poem is a particularly satire on Western people who considered themselves as a superior than African culture. So it is written by African poet to satire the Western mentality of superiority. And the poem includes lot many themes such like cultural conflicts, modernism, colonialism, nationalism, and at last the racism. The poem is consists into 10 stanzas. Now let me begin with the theme. First theme that I have taken is cultural conflict. Cultural conflict. Here we in the poem we find cultural conflict between African and Western culture. The poem is taking side of African culture and its heritage because it was written by African poet. In if we see that this poem, we find that Africa and India has cultural difference along with geographical difference. So African culture, we find that it is more close to nature, or they are living around the nature or worshipping nature, where Western culture, according to poem, we find as a materialistic, that is described by Okara. And due to that we find that there is conflict between superior and inferior, because the Western people are white and African people are considered as a black. So they thought the Western people are thinking that they are superior because they have white complexion. And due to that geographical differences, they had this skin color. And due to that we find that this conflict of superior and inferior. And if we see that Western people considered African as an inferior, and everything, not only that African people, but everything that is belong to African, that is like their culture, their people, their behavior, their manners, everything they are considering as a inferior. And that we find in the poem, that is in the very first line we find that you laughed at no in between the lines we find that you laughed at my song, you laughed at my walk, you laughed at my dance, you laughed at my insight, you laughed and laughed and laughed. So here we find that laughing at song, it means they are their culture, this their songs or their dance are their culture. They, on them the Western people are laughing. Their walk means their physical appearance, they are it is representing their physical appearance. On their physical appearance they are laughing. Or we can say their insights means their behavior, their manners, their behaviors. On them also they are laughing and showing them. This laugh is very sarcastic. Here we find that they are showing them inferior, their culture, their appearance, everything. In other case we find that Gabriel Okara try to defend their, like defending his people and his culture, but he himself trying to put the Western people down, that our culture is superior than you. If you are thinking, it is trying, Gabriel Okara trying to say in his poem that you are saying that Western culture is superior, but our culture is more superior than yours, are more close to nature, and everything are good than the Western culture. So he is trying to put down Western culture by saying this word is indicating this, that the word he used, that ice block laughter, that he used for Western people, it is showing that they're like it is trying to put down the Western people or culture. In we find, but if we deeply analyze the thing, we find that it is not just it is not a judgmental view of Gabriel Okara. Rather it is a pain or a pain for unacceptable behavior of from Western towards Africans. So we consider it as a pain of acceptability rather than the judgmental view. We can contrast like that also. Now, the second theme that I have taken is modernism. According to Merriam-Webster dictionary, we find that modernism is a practice, usage or expressions particular to modern times. In the poem, we find that poet used some modern words that make this poem a modern piece of work. In the very first line, we find that in your ears, my song is motor car, misfiring, stopping with a choking cough, and you laughed and laughed and laughed. So this in this line we find the word motor car, or we find that choking cough is a something that is indicating modernism in the poem of Okara. The another line is also indicating the modernism, that is, instead you entered your car and laughed and laughed and laughed. So here car is also a symbol of modernism, and it is not just a symbol of modernism, rather it is a symbol of luxury lifestyle also. Now we find that here we also find that African people are shown as more close to nature, following traditional lifestyle like the dancing, singing, and other things. That is for their particular style to entertain themselves, while these Western people are shown that more modern or luxurious lifestyle by using such word for modern, more Western people, like motor car or car or such things. Now the third one is colonialism. So what is colonialism? So as per Merriam-Webster dictionary, we find that colonialism is a domination of people or area by foreign state or nation, that the practice of extending and maintaining a nation's political and economic control over another people or area. This poem is reflecting suffering of Africa as a colonized country. As we all know that Britain colonized so many countries, including Africa, India, and many more countries, and they ruled over them so for so many years. And the main reason that how they are colonized, that all these countries, it is that there is a myth between them, that Western people are believed, and they make other people believe, those who are not white or fair skin people. The myth was that they believed that they are fair because God made them from their own skin. Rather, the African people or Indian people or those who are not white people are not fair or not black people, because they are burned in the fire of hell. That was the myth that Western people believe, and they make other believe also. And through that they state their superiority over them. So here in the poem we find that Western people is considering themselves superior, and this whole poem is written in the conflict, or we can say contrast, or to do we can say to do argument against that concept that we are not inferior, we are as superior as you, or more than superior, more superior than you. Gabriel Okara is showing. And when we find in the poem that the laugh by Western people, or we can say here the Gabriel Okara use you for the Western people. Symbolically, you is used there. He is not particular directly mentioning Western people, but indirectly he is using. So when they are laughing on the dance, walk, songs on the African people, it is showing colonized mindset of Western people. That is what here we find. And this laughing is like a mental torture for African people. It is like not torturing directly, but indirectly it is torturing and making them inferior or making them feel inferior. We find that there is a poem, there is one line in the poem, we find that your laughter was ice block laughter, which is directly showing that how it is mentally torturing them to African people. Now fourth is nationalism. So what is nationalism? So as per Webster dictionary, we find that nationalism is a sense of national consciousness accelerating one nation above all other and placing primary emphasis on promotion of its culture and interest as opposed to those who other nations or supranational groups. In the poem is reflecting poem's love for his nation that he wrote to defend his culture or his nation against the mindset of colonialism, or we can say a western mindset. And African people are here, we find, is considered as close to nature, and is western is considered as a more materialistic. So this nature is national, is a symbolically symbolism of African culture, or we can say nationality of African, where the materialism is symbolically nationalism, we can say symbolic representation of western people. So this is their identities that is reflecting here in the poem. uh, in the poem, we find that the line to support that how the nature is representing African nationality is this: fire of the eye, of the eyes, of the sky, the fire of the earth, the fire of the air, the fire of the seas and the rivers, fishes, animals, trees, and its thawed your inside. So here in this line, we find use of many natural resources like sea, eye of the sky. Sky means sea, sun, fire, air, river, fish, animal, trees. This all natural resources are representing that how African people are very close to nature, and it is representing that African nationality or culture. And we find that another thing that we find about Africa here in this poem, it is like their history, that one line that is indicating their history or their forefathers. It is this: so a meek wonder held your shadow, and and you whispered, why so? And I answered, because my fathers and I are owned by the living warmth of the earth throughout the naked feet. So this is showing something background of African culture or history. Accepting this, there is a reference of magic dance, which is reflecting superstitious nature of African people, that they are believing such kind of magic dance. Or we can also consider it as a their cultural dance. Now the fifth one is racism. So here I have taken two etymological reference of racism that is given by Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, that indicates that the word racism comes from the root race combined with the suffix ism, which means a belief or doctrine. And the definition of racism is a belief that race is fundamental determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherited superiority of particular race. In the poem that we find that the poem is all about the pain and suffering of black people that are colonized by white colonizers. So in poem we find that how the white people are neglecting the black people by neglecting all the acts of them. For example, their walk, their dance, their existence, their insights, their songs, and everything, by laughing on them. So this laughing is also somewhere we find the sarcastic. And we find that their geographical locations are quite different. So there the people who are living in western, they are obviously they are fair skin, and these African people are black skinned people. And though they are making these differences on a basis of, we can say, ritual religious basis, that is the myth that I have talked about, and on a basis of their skins. Mm. So this all, thank you, and these are my citations.
Yes, so my question is like this whole poem is about the sarcastic approach of Western civilization, that how the civilizers came, and then how they are valuing them higher than the colonized people of Africa. So by the poem, when we go through, we find that by the using the repeatedly word laugh. So do you think that by writing of this poem, poet is also attempting the same thing by sarcasting them and putting poets' culture's value higher than them?
Yes. Um, this I have mentioned in my slide also, and that this Gabriel Okara is trying to make their culture superior than, like we can contrast argument we can do that on that, that he is saying that that cultures are same or similar, but he himself we can say unconsciously or consciously making his culture, trying to show his culture higher than this Western culture. In this poem we find this line, such lines that is indicating these things, like it is say, the Gabriel Okara is saying this: your laughter is ice block laughter, while our laughter is not ice blocking laughter. So he is trying to say that all the things that are belonging to us, like we are close to nature, and our dance and our walk and our songs are more valuable than yours. Your laughter and your, like you are going to motor car and your materialistic way are all the things that are making you that are all the things are ice blocking, and while are all the things are more valuable than this. So this how he is trying to get it superior, but we can do it contrast argument against that, that it is not, rather we can say that it is not that Okara is being judgmental, but more it is a kind of pain that they are suffered throughout the centuries, of being under them Western people, and that all inferiority.
My question is very similar to this above question, that but it is superiority is the only way to concern by these colonized people, is to showing, as poet showing that their culture is superior. And as you also talked about superiority several times during the presentation, but it is the only concern for colonized people to showing their superiority, or any the other concerns that in the poem.
No, it is not the, we cannot say that it is the major concern of showing their superiority, but rather they show their superiority because they want to make, they want to state their, or we can say, make their authority there in whichever country they are going. So it is very important to them to show that their superiority, because if they are not showing their superiority, no one will follow them, or no one will um, we can say take what their orders or everything. So uh, we all know that they are that Western people are move around the world, colonize the entire the many, so many countries, because they want to do business there, they want to earn. So earning is the in the basic basis of this, but they has to prove their superiority over other people, otherwise no one will understand them, or rather we can say that no one will follow their instructions. So that's why they are showing their superiority, or religious reasons are also might be there.